Recently, I made the startling discovery that the diameter of the stone that's in my gallbladder is slightly larger than the diameter of the duct it was trying to go through. I've heard that pain gives you clarity. I don't want that kind of clarity. The upside of this medical drama is that I had totally forgot about these guys. I had been running a test where I was going to leave them alone for 4 days and to see if they would write afterwards. In my first test, I filled them with Athena Eternal Blue and they both wrote fine. Then I filled them with Pen BBS's Southern Smoke, which is a shimmering ink. The Decimo wrote fine, but the Platinum had a hard start after the next day. Then I filled them both with a pigmented ink called Dude from Kala, and they both wrote fine on the first day, but the Curidas had a hard start on the second day. But surprisingly, both pens sat over the weekend, and when I tried to write with them 2 days later, the Curidas wrote just fine with no hard starts, but the Decimo was completely dried out. I tried writing with it again 2 days later, and again it wrote just fine. It was curious that the Curidas seemed to write better the longer it laid around. Then I decided as a last test I would fill them both with Tsukio, which is my go-to normal ink. I was going to let them sit around for 2 days and then write with them, and then sit around for 4 days and write with them. But then I got clarity. As a result, both pens ended up sitting around unused for 3 weeks with Tsukio in them. And here are the results of that test. The Decimos skipped right off the bat with the P on pilot and then skipped 2 more times while I was writing. But after these 3 skips, it wrote just fine. The Curidas did this weird skipping writing thing until I scratched the pen all around and got it flowing. And then it wrote beautifully, nice and smooth. I really don't know what to make of this, and of course this is a very non-scientific approach. The pen sat out on my desk and the curtains are open into the room pretty much 24/7, and they sat that way pretty much for 3 weeks. I'm going to do a quick rundown of the pros and cons of the Curidas and then put some information in the description box and try to keep that updated. The Curidas is a long pen which may be difficult to plunge in the clicker for people with smaller hands. It is also a fairly girthy pen. It has a clip that is removable, but the little bump that holds the clip on may bother some people. That also can be removed, but that will certainly void your warranty as you're cutting off a piece of the pen. If you take off the clip and then even cut off the nub that held on the clip, there are these side nubs, but they're not really a problem. For people that choke up on their pen, that housing on the bottom may be a problem. To help you determine whether or not that bump is going to be a problem for you, I'm going to compare the Curidas to the end of the section of several pens. No one is going to choke up past the end of the section onto the fins of the pen, so I'm going to compare the 149, the end of the section, to the bottom of the bump. And as you can see, the nib is large enough where you'll be about the same distance from the paper. Here is the TWSBI Echo and the end of the section, and I'm going to line that up with the bottom of the bump. And you can see if you do choke up on the Echo, you are going to have problems with that bump. Here on the Platinum 3776, the end of the section, and then we'll line it up with the bottom of the bump on the Platinum. And it looks like it works even if you do choke up on the pen. In my original review, I had ink splotches on the inside tip of the pen. no ink ever splattered on the paper or anything, but since it's a demonstrator, you could see the ink. I now tried to click the pen repeatedly and I couldn't get ink splotches on the inside tip. It may be because the pen did sit for 3 weeks. I guess the ink splatters don't really bother me because I kind of get a lot of drip into the cap with my demonstrators and you can see them easily. As far as the pros, the Curidas uses a full-up platinum converter, which means you get a little more ink. The converter also fits very securely into the nib unit, unlike many other pens. If you don't like the clip, you can remove it. If you don't like the little nub that's left over from removing the clip, you can grind it down. The bump toward the tip of the pen that houses the opening mechanism is only really a problem if you really choke up on your pen. This is by far the most interesting demonstrator pen that I've ever owned. Right before I published, I got to talk to 2 other people that owned a Curidas. Paperlate on Instagram owns a fine green Curidas, and he says that the bump does bother him and he does get ink splotches on the inside tip. Bruno Tot from Chronicus Stylographicus also has a green Curidas with a fine nib, and he says he's not getting any ink splotches on the inside, but he hasn't written with the pen much. But he says he has an orthodox tripod grip and neither the bump nor the clip bothers him. And as I said on my last review, Dan Zoot has an extra fine Curidas and he has no problems with ink splotches nor holding the pen. The Curidas has now arrived to the Japanese discount stores, and Bruno Tot bought his for 5,300 yen, which is a little over $47. This is amazing since they're going to sell it online for $80 in the States. I'm not so sure that the Platinum Curidas is a competitor with the capless, but maybe more so with the Pilot Prera, since it has a snap cap and you can pop it off quickly to take notes. The Curidas is supposed to arrive overseas and in the States in the middle of April, but I don't know if the coronavirus is going to delay that. I'll try to keep the information in my description box up to date. And they've also decided to release the Curidas stateside complete with a converter. You had to pay for it separately here in Japan, which is an added $5 to $8. The interesting thing that came out of my original review was that people were very opinionated about this pen. They either loved it or hated it, even though many people had never even really tested the pen. I enjoy both of my capless pens, my Decimo because it's sleek and pretty, and then my Curidas because it's the exact opposite of that. And since I'm Inky Rocks, the green tray that the Decimo is on is made of fluorite, and then the mineral slab below that is ocean jasper. Take care, wash your hands, and I'll try to post more frequently while we're all shut in.